Talking with WWE Superstar Drew McIntyre. If you were a fan of all things wrestling, you've definitely heard that name over the last couple of years. And if I go no further, let me say this. I think you did a hell of a job during the Thunderdome era. I can only imagine how bittersweet that was to be handed that strap, but unfortunately have to do it in an arena that had no people in it. And I think the fact that you guys did the whole show must go on thing is an incredible amount of merit. And I can only imagine how difficult that was to do on your end.
Yeah, I appreciate that for one. But yeah, I mean, the world was going through the most difficult time in my lifetime, and I guess my parents' lifetime. And every entertainment and sport company shut down. We as a company decided to push ahead and give the world that escape, that original content. And it just so happened to fall on when I became WWE champion for the first time in 20 years. So, I got a little angry, got a little upset leading up to Mania. But once I started seeing the gravity of the situation, understood how scared people were, and we really had a chance to give them an escape a couple of times a week for a few hours a week. And I was the one leading the charge. That changed my perspective, and I gave it my all during that period. As much as some of our superstars like to forget during that time,
Sure.
I remember it, very well, and I'm very proud of it.
I think you should be. I think that was an undertaking in itself, but to have to step up and do that at a time when nobody really kind of had an answer for what was going on is, it's a lot to put on anybody. That's for sure. I think you guys did better with the Thunderdome than when it started out with the empty arena. That just came across from a viewer standpoint as just awkward. And I felt bad for you guys. It was almost like watching a dress rehearsal every week until the cameras kind of got in there and you saw people's faces.
Yeah, I mean, I never did drama or anything at school. We were kind of standing on a stage and performing in like a rehearsal type situation where you have two people looking at you trying to win the part. I guess that's the closest I've ever done, except mine was in a wrestling ring. There was a one cameraman behind the camera, and it was millions of people watching on TV and social media across the world as you're delivering your interviews, which generally are very much participation in WWE
Sure.
with the crowd back and
Sure.
forth, but it's complete and utter silence. And as I say, as WWE champion, it all rolls downhill. I had to set the example to everybody of, hey, we got to embrace this environment and make it feel as comfortable as possible, as natural as possible, or it's going to feel very awkward for people watching at home. And I had to get a couple of people's ears who would walk out and pose to imaginary fans, which drove me insane. I was like, "Who are you posing to? There's nobody there." I'm just in the I'm just in the habit of it. I was like, "What if they're not cheering when you go out? Do you always just pose? Like you should, even if there's 20,000 people there or 80,000 people there, you should be doing what organically happens in the moment, not planning. I'm going to pose this way and I'm going to pose this way, or you're just a performing idiot." Like our job is very much interactive. That's what made it so hard at that time. But I did want to make it feel as natural as possible and embrace the environment.
Hey, and you got to do what you got to do, I guess. Now, you've certainly evolved over the years into that upper echelon level of, I guess you would say, WWE superstar, and you've seen a lot. What's it like now? I mean, we're in an era of WWE where Vince McMahon is not in charge anymore. Is that, I obviously you can't get too in depth, but how's that feel from a performance standpoint for you? Is that better, worse, or are you still indifferent on the whole thing?
For me personally, it's just strange because I'm so used to Vince being there and had a great relationship with him, and would always go in when I had a question that perhaps nobody else could answer but him because he's been around for so long and he thinks so crazy outside the box. But at the same time, Triple H very much has that same kind of mind that if I'm not quite sure how to execute something, as long as I've been around, I can just go straight to him and say, "Hey, I'm thinking this and this," and he goes, "Why don't you just do it this way?" And I'll tell him because nobody else thinks that way except you, because you think so crazy outside the box, as well as Vince. And he was under the learning tree with Vince for so long. But if you look at the show right now, the quality, how many performers are stepping up, the numbers when it comes to business, the contracts that are flying around right now, the business has never been stronger.
No, and I think the product has over the last, let's say 6, 8 months, really gone up a level as far as what's been going on from a viewer standpoint, and I'm sure you guys like that. I mean, the having been in one of those arenas during a WrestleMania a couple of times, it's still the largest crowd I've ever been in, and I can't imagine being in the ring on that side of things and that energy that you guys must feel. But what kind of pressure is on that, especially when it's live? Because if you, I mean, I know accidents happen, but is that just an insane amount of pressure every time you walk down that ramp?
We'd call it pressure. I mean, again, I've been around for so long, so maybe it's different for me. And I've been doing it since I was 15, signed to WWE when I was 21. Butterflies is more the thing for me. A little bit of nerves. I assume once I stop getting butterflies, I stop getting the nerves is the day I have to pack it in. But I love live TV because anything can happen. And no matter what you think you're going to do when you get out there, no matter what, you've talked about with certain people and advised to do when you get out there, you can literally change it depending on what the crowd do. And I'm never going to stick to any kind of script. If I walk out there and I'm doing the air quotations by the script, and the crowd react a certain way, I'm not going to stick to that. I'm going to stay within the lines of the story, but I'm always going to go where the crowd takes me. And that's the beauty of live TV. And if I come back and I made the wrong decision, I'll stick my wrist out, I'll get it slapped, but I'll never just go along because that was the plan. And that's the excitement of live TV and the excitement of WWE, because you never know what's going to happen.
And I'll tell you what, you guys have the benefit of that crowd. They let you know pretty quickly if something's working or if something's not working.
Oh, they do. Especially if it's not working, they'll let you know. And so that's the times where I say you just gotta adjust on the fly, and you have to be able to improvise. And I've watched people just tank. And I've seen myself, getting close to tanking a couple of times. And I'll give an example. I remember a few years ago, I just came back to WWE. I'd been fired for a few years, had to go find myself. I wrestled Kurt Angle, the Olympic gold medalist, won the gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
Right. He damn true.
It's damn true. And I was, about to kind of step up to the next level and, get a convincing win over Kurt. I didn't just beat him. I beat him with his ankle lock, and I tortured him during the match and looked him in the eye and talked trash about his family. Like, really horrible person. Building that big bad guy. And the interview afterwards, I remember I went out there and I was supposed to say something about, how it was difficult for me and, how much pain it caused me to do this to such a legend. And I just blanked when I was out there. And that's one of the moments where I reminded myself, remember what you learned when you were gone for the company. You got comfortable in the microphone, finally go with what feels right. So instead of saying that, how much it hurt me, I literally said, you know what? I loved every second of it. I loved when he screamed. I loved the tears in his eyes. It was fantastic. And I got back waiting to get told off because I did literally the exact opposite of what the plan was. But I did what felt natural when I blanked in the moment. And I was told, great job. Vince loved it. Obviously, you believed what you were saying. And that was what was right for the character. And I guess my subconscious blanked it because it just didn't feel right. And if you go with what feels right, if you believe what you're doing, the bosses will be fine as long as the crowd are responding appropriately.
There you go. How much say do you get into your character? As far as,
I can tire. So I get a lot of say. But it's a collaboration. That's the cool thing. In WWE, like our writers are so talented. They have lots of ideas and they work with you, give you their ideas. And, obviously all the way to the top. It was Vince, now Triple H. And they have a very clear vision of what they believe will work. But you could absolutely input yourself into that, work with them with that. Because if you don't believe in what you're doing, it's going to be so obvious to the crowd. It's going to come across as not real. You can see it in some of the performers' eyes when they're not believing what they're doing, or they look like a deer in the headlights during matches or interviews. Like, you have to 100% believe it, or the crowd will never buy in. You'll never get to that next level.
Now, I know we're coming off of Crown Jewel. We're heading into what arguably is one of everyone's favorite live events of the year in Survivor Series. And I know you guys are in town for Smackdown, so I want to get to that. But I have to ask you first, who would be your dream opponent? If you could get in the ring with anybody, and we'll go living or dead on this one, who would you want to throw down with in there?
I usually go with Brett and Sean. So such a big Bret the Hitman Hart fan, as a kid. And, eventually developed a relationship, with him and somewhat of a mentor. And when it comes to Sean, I do believe he is the greatest in-ring performer of all time, especially in the big matches. Nobody could touch him. And again, worked with him in NXT. I became a mentor. I always say I got my PhD working with Sean. So it's crazy that, two of the people I admired so much, became such a big part of my life and especially helped me up my game in the ring, specifically Sean. But it'd be one of those two for sure.
And I had a chance to talk to Sean a couple of years back, and him and Brett were kind of like, they were small guys that were kind of breaking that mold at the time. And his match with The Undertaker's, his final match with The Undertaker will still go down as arguably one of the greatest of all time. I think it was just, I mean, about as perfect as a perfect match can get.
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable, that first one and the second one. But the first one, I remember afterwards, everybody just like, wow, I don't think that'll ever be topped again. And like you say, there were smaller guys, which is interesting. I'm a bigger guy, but as a kid, I was always drawn to those two, and I couldn't figure out why. My buddies all loved the larger than life superstars like the Hogans and the Warriors and the like. And it wasn't until I got a little older and I started wrestling when I was about 15, I could finally articulate it. I was always drawn in as a kid. Every kid is drawn in by, the cartoons and story time
Sure.
and their books and their movies. Like the way those guys had matches was very much like story time. It told such a compelling story with their actions in the ring. I plopped down in front of those matches the same way I would when I was watching Disney or, any TV show, while some of the other wrestlers are kind of big and impressive looking. They were slow and plodding and not very exciting to me. So that's why I finally realized I had even greater appreciation for guys like that, because I was like, wow, even in my infant mind, you hooked me with your storytelling and action in the ring.
And you guys, I mean, the fact that the way you guys tell stories, honestly, by putting your bodies on the line, because for a lot of people who don't realize, it doesn't feel good when you make a 10-foot jump from the top of a ring apron onto the floor below. Like there's still some, shock that
No,
goes through
even
your
just
body.
falling on the mat, just from a standing position doesn't feel good. Anytime anyone has anything to say about wrestling, no, I never took offense by it. I'm happy to kind of explain, obviously, the way I'm talking this interview about the ins and outs and how things work, and I'm very open about it because it is not easy whatsoever. And the first thing I always say, if you get somebody who's just hell bent on fake is fake is fake, I go, listen, if you can figure out the fake gravity, you run to me first and you tell Drew McIntyre how you fake gravity, because freaking every time I jump up, I keep falling down.
Well, not to mention that even when you are laying there and you're taught to obviously land the right way, you're still getting some of that body weight that's coming down on your body weight. It's not, it's
Oh,
not like
there's
a
it's
pillow.
like go to, like, if there's no local wrestling school and you can feel what the ropes and the mat feel like, just go to your local like MMA school. There's one in every town now. Everyone thinks they're a UFC fighter. Just go and then take a fall on take a fall on a judo mat. It's not unlike that with a little more give, except you do it every week, 52 weeks a year, 3 days a week, and it
Right.
it piles up.
Absolutely, it does. Not to mention just the strain on your joints and everything else over time. And Father Time still has one up on pretty much everybody, no matter how good you are. So it's
Yeah,
just
he's undefeated, but there's always someone that's going to defeat him. I'm working on it.
well, you're working your way into Columbus for SmackDown, and I got to tell you, you're coming into what we refer to affectionately as Buckeye Country. So here in Ohio, we do this thing where we go OH, and then you're supposed to go.
Uh,
Ooh, see, it's getting
IO.
there. You go. So if you were in front of
Thank
the
goodness
live
I went to
crowd,
school. People have all these preconceptions about wrestlers. How dumb they are. We can spell.
see now when you're in that live crowd, if they go OH, you're supposed to go.
IO.
There you
There we
go.
go.
See.
There we go. There we go. Thank goodness I figured out that one, because boy, I'd feel silly if you told me.
Hey, everybody has their own chance everywhere. So what do we got to look forward to with the SmackDown program this week?
Ooh, it's on fire right now. Our whole product of SmackDown has been getting record numbers for a while now, which is amazing considering football season, everything going on, so much alternatives on television. The ratings just keep going up. Our shows are selling out left and right. If you have tickets, good for you. I haven't checked yet, but chances are it's sold out. If it's not, grab those tickets, because WWE really is on fire. And if you know, I don't have to sell you. If you've not been to it yet, you have to experience a live show. We've got something for everybody, from the youngest kid to not the oldest, but the youngest at heart. There's so many different characters. It's such a spectacle with the lights, the pyro, the showmanship. And by the time you leave the show, aside the value for money, you're going to be like, wow, I'm a WWE fan now. I did not expect to see such athleticism, such showmanship, and all those freaking fireworks and entrances were cool as hell.
Absolutely, they are. Well, Drew McIntyre, of course, WWE superstar. We wish you the best. I know you've got a lot of stuff on the horizon. I know you're running around the day with the missus, so hopefully that goes well. Looking forward to seeing you Friday in Columbus. Thank you again for taking the time. Always good to get some insight and see where the minds of WWE superstars lie, you know, when it comes to the product, when it comes to being on the road and everything. And it's been fun, man. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you on Friday.